When a woman reported domestic violence in her building in the Athens suburb of Daphne in July, it took 25 minutes for the police to arrive. All the neighbours could hear Anissa's husband abusing her, but the police officers did not bother to get out of the patrol car. They just rolled down their car windows and left, Anissa's neighbour angrily wrote on Facebook that evening. No stress, guys. Television only cares about the bodies. So when he kills her, I'll tell a television channel to call you. Less than 3 weeks later, Anissa was dead, murdered by her husband. Neither can be named in full, as the case has yet to reach trial. Since the beginning of the previous year, femicides have been the dominating issue in Greece's news stories and local conversations. In the early months of 2021, Greeks witnessed the national breakout of the #MeToo movement after a Greek gold medalist accused a high-standing official in the Hellenic Sailing Federation of sexually assaulting her almost 20 years ago. The medalist, Sofia Bekatoru, sparked a wave of confessions of women that took the chance to finally speak out and unload the burden of their own experiences. The confessions transcended to the acting sector, and it was revealed that multiple established actors were using their power to assault their female colleagues. For several months, the stories of these women being propositioned in their workplace, abused and lured in private rooms and empty theatres to be raped, were the only matters anyone talked about in formal and informal settings. In some of these cases, the actors have been legally investigated. The conversation about the challenges women faced was eye-opening for many, but not surprising for the most. The number of cases of men who did not deem a woman's consent necessary to take right over her body was alarming. However, the public acknowledgement of the situation felt like a turn in history, a wake-up call to prevent others from behaving the same way. In the case of Anissa, and in a statement to police, the perpetrator described how he was overcome with jealousy after Anissa allegedly cheated on him. I took the knife with my right hand and entered her room. She was sleeping, and I rushed to her and lay on her, stabbing her with the knife in her neck, he said. He later retracted his claim that Anissa was asleep when he killed her. He finally killed her, that's all I have to say, their neighbour wrote on Facebook after the murder. At the time, Anissa's murder was the 6th femicide in Greece in 2021. Since then, at least another 6 women across the country had been murdered by their partners or ex-partners before the end of the summer season. Anissa's relatives believe that night in mid-July was the turning point. They say the lack of police intervention allowed the perpetrator to believe he could kill with impunity. The 2 officers who failed to get out of their car and investigate have since been suspended. The murder was planned. He knew exactly what he was doing, says Anissa's cousin Christina, who wanted to keep her surname private. Then, he washed his hands and cleaned himself up. He was very thorough. Then he went to the police station. He did exactly what Balaskas said. She said, referring to a senior member of Greece's police union. Stavros Balaskas made headlines after the murder of the British-born Caroline Crouch by her husband Charalambos Babis Anagnostopoulos in June. Anagnostopoulos confessed following a month-long manhunt after initially blaming the murder on a gang of robbers and was arrested at Crouch's memorial service. The incident captured the Greek news cycle so much so that most people refer to Crouch just by her first name, a byword for violence against women. For more than 5 weeks, Babis, a flight instructor, had maintained the crime was a result of a robbery in which he and Crouch had been tied up and gagged until he admitted he had fabricated the story to conceal the killing. In a television interview later that month, Balaskas claimed that if Babis had confessed immediately, he may have received a reduced sentence. It was an unfortunate event committed in anger, and he lost it and went crazy. If he had just called the police, he would have gotten 4 years in prison, he said. If in the moment this man killed Caroline, he called the police and said, "I had a fight with my wife and I killed her," he would have had a different kind of treatment from us. A number of femicides that occurred after Balaskas' statement involved perpetrators immediately telling the police what they had done. Victims' families believe his statements emboldened would-be perpetrators, enabling the idea that accused men can sway courts by displaying behaviour that match the clauses in the penal code. "Don't advise future murderers and make their lives easier," says Christina. Balaskas claimed the quote was taken out of context and shrugged off any suggestion that unintentionally or otherwise his statement acted as a guide for violent men. "I have a name as a tough guy," he said. "I have a reputation for this. Some people want to use this against me, but people who know me understand," he said, combating the rise in domestic violence in Greece required women to speak up. Other victims' families say Balaskas' statement epitomizes a macho culture in the Hellenic police, but often fails to take domestic violence seriously, producing gaps in policing that enable femicide. "There's no option to talk. That's why women don't talk. Our society is patriarchal," says Sofia Karaschinivu, who, with her sister Maria, is mourning their mother, who was shot by their father earlier this year. The two women say their father terrorized their family since they were young, but his brutal attacks on their mother increased after their divorce in 2017, sometimes even taking place publicly. The sisters estimate that their mother reported their father to the police at least 8 times after their divorce, including once in 2018 when their father filed a counterclaim that led to the pair being held in the same cell overnight. The police, they say, then just advised their mother to avoid their father in their Athens suburb of Aya Varvara, but offered no other solutions. In June, their father shot their mother in the shoulder and head, fatally wounding her. When Sophia arrived at the police cordoned around the crime scene, she struggled to convince officers their father was responsible. "I told the police. My mother called so many times. How could you let this happen?" says Sophia. They do nothing for domestic violence. They just don't care. Their father turned himself in the day after the shooting and will stand trial for homicide as well as illegal possession of a firearm. The sisters fear he will receive a lenient sentence. "We are both afraid for our lives," says Maria. To a large extent, the gender problem in Greece is rooted in the lack of social education and the prevalence of conservative values in public schooling, for example, bold nationalism and religious and one-dimensionality. In a country which reaches temperatures of 35 plus degrees during the academic year, girls in several high schools are not allowed to wear shorts, skirts or sandals, while boys walk around with sagging pants. Backwards notions of feminine decency and the duty not to provoke the male gaze are clearly reinforced, instilling sexist stereotypes in individual mindsets from the earliest stages of their socialization. In combination with a lack of dialogue on issues of gender sexuality, consent and gender relations, the process of unlearning in later life becomes all the more challenging. Notably, Greece is one of the few countries in Europe where sex education is not included in the school curriculum, although data shows it is the most sexually active country in the world. Notwithstanding that social media and globalization have increased access to information regarding sex and sexual health, systemic initiatives are still necessary. While information in the online world is free and abundant, we cannot deny that one's digital media use is to a large extent dependent on their effective circle and echo chambers. People who will actively seek to educate themselves on matters of social justice are most likely not the ones that truly need to do so. An unfortunate consequence of these educational failures is that a large portion of the population embraces sexist stereotypes not out of a calculated spite, but simply because they don't know any better. Undoubtedly, the country is also suffering from the menace of radicals and extremists who wholeheartedly embrace hate, but unfortunately, these individuals seem to be, for the most part, a lost cause. What education can ensure, however, is that our radical mindsets are not passed on to the next generations. Our family upbringing, to a large extent, determines how we think, but the other cycles of socialization, such as school and our broader social culture context, can majorly influence our life path. The beauty of progress is that humans are able to transcend generational patterns if they are provided with the appropriate tools and stimuli to do so.